Ric has a variety of education getting him ready for his career. He has a Communication Disorders degree, Audiology, Audiology, and then he owned his own private practice for 27 years. And I learned when he gave this talk before that he's as much therapist as he is audiologist. He's really good at this stuff. You'll all hear better when he has completed his talk. Huh, Ric?
What?
Ric Namikas, here.
Thank you very much, Kit. I want to thank Kit Cassingham for getting this knowledge sharing started. Whether it's something deep and intellectual or just something fun that some of our residents know, it's nice for us to have the opportunity to share in this arena. Macklin Fristow was one of the professors that I had at Purdue, and she taught me that there are 3 levels of knowledge that you go through. The first level is that you do not know that you don't know. You're completely oblivious to information that you have no idea is out there. The second is when you become aware and you do know that you don't know. There is stuff about this ship like rudder stocks and things like that that I had no idea was knowledge out there, that I know much better now than I ever thought I would.
Yeah.
And then eventually when it becomes such a part of you that you don't even have to think about it, you don't know that you know. And it's just there when somebody collapses and you know how to do CPR, boom, you're there doing it. When somebody asks for a translation of a language that you're fluent in, boom, it's right there. This forum allows us to at least start on that journey of incorporating new knowledge into our lives and sharing some of what we know and love. So, the primary function of eyes is to see. The primary function of ears is
No ear.
somebody was paying attention. It's not hearing. The primary function, the first function of the ears is balance. Embryologically, the semicircular canals develop first, and an animal can survive without hearing. An animal cannot survive without balance. If you try to stand up and you fall down, if the world is constantly spinning, all the little snap bands and patches in the world won't help if you have no inner ear. So we're going to talk about the second purpose of the ear, which is hearing. Sound is a moving disturbance of an elastic medium. If you remove any one of those components, moving disturbance, elastic medium, you no longer have sound. The medium is air or water or a solid, air, gas, liquid, or solid. Sound can travel through any one of those. And yes, in space they cannot hear you scream because there is no medium for the sound to travel through. The 3 parameters of sound are, let me see if I remember. It is, oh yeah. Frequency, intensity, and duration, which is how audiologists do it. Sound, that is. Frequency is...
How's that work, Ellie?
So far, so good?
Frequency is how fast those vibrations of disturbance through that medium are traveling. You might think of it like the ripples in water, that as those waves propagate out, that is the moving disturbance of that elastic medium. The faster it's moving, the higher the frequency. It's measured in cycles per second or hertz.
Once a day or once an hour?
With an E. The intensity is how strong each impulse is. So the taller the waves, the stronger the push, the louder the sound. in the case of sound.
That's what she said.
The duration is how long that propagation goes on. You might have a long musical note, or you might have a pop or a click. The density of the medium will determine the speed at which sound moves. In the case of a solid, it moves very quickly. Hence, people putting their ear down to the railroad track to hear the train coming great distance off. Through liquid, it's slightly slower, and through air, slower still. That the movement of sound through air is approximately 1,100 feet per second at normal air pressure at sea level. The wavelength of a 2,000 hertz or 2,000 cycle per second tone is about 13.78 inches. Yes, I wrote that down. The width of the human head is approximately 6 to 7 inches, or 1/2 of a full cycle. So each one of those waves, a full cycle is from the start up, down, and back up. So that is a pressure wave, a vacuum wave, and back to neutral. That's where I thought we were. The width of the human head is approximately 6 to 7 inches. The average head. Some heads are not average. And so with that, with the width of the human head being 1/2 of that cycle, the brain can use that information to determine where sound is coming from. A higher frequency than 2,000 cycles per second will create a head shadow. That if you're listening for birds or some high frequency sound, you'll find yourself turning your head, and it'll get louder over here, then fade, and then louder over here, and you'll know it's over that way. If the frequency is lower than 2,000 hertz, then that wave is longer than the head, and so the waves will actually wrap around the head, and the brain is able to determine the phase, whether it's the push or the pull, whether it is this portion or this portion that's hitting the ear first. And so the brain will determine the direction without having to localize to isolate the intensity of the sound, because the brain can determine the phase of the sound. So if you were to go out of a place where there's music playing or something like that, you'll find that you'll hear the thump, thump, thump of the bass, because it will go through things and around things, but the high frequencies tend to be absorbed by solid objects. No, not him. The way that we hear. Those pressure waves are gathered by the outer ear, the pinna, which is already tuned to enhance certain frequencies. Goes down the ear canal in pressure waves that will strike the tympanic membrane or the eardrum. That tympanic membrane will push the lever of the hammer or malleus, which is a lever which adds a little bit more advantage to hearing sound. That's transferred through the incus or the anvil to the stirrup or stapes, which is a piston that pushes in and out of the fluid-filled inner ear cavity, where this portion is balance and this portion is hearing. The difference in size between the eardrum and the stapes is like a thumbtack. So a little pressure on the eardrum is a great pressure at the stapes. That the lever here multiplies about 1.3 times to 1, and it's about a 13 to 1 advantage for going down to the stapes. This is the cochlea. This is where the hearing nerves are. Goes around 2.5 turns, with the high pitch sensitivity being at this portion, the low pitches at this end. And the pressure wave will whip along the basilar membrane. With the high frequency, with no matter what pitch it is that you're listening to, it's going to go all the way up to the top. So those high frequency sounds are going to be most damaging to the portion here where the low frequencies tend to survive. That'll show up again later. We are able to hear from about 20 cycles per second to 20,000 cycles per second. However, the sweet spot for our hearing is from about 250 hertz to about 8,000 hertz. The sound pressure that it takes for us to be able to perceive those sounds is significantly more at the extreme ends there and there. But there's more. Hearing doesn't stop here. That the basilar membrane will displace nerve fibers inside, which change that motion into electrical impulses, which cross out to the 8th cranial nerve, go over to the opposite side of the brain, which is over here somewhere, with the right ear going to the left side of the brain, and the right ear going over to the left side of the brain. Yeah, I'm done with that one. So fortunately, most of the sounds that we use for understanding speech are in that sweet spot. When we test hearing, we test from about 250 hertz out to 8,000 hertz with the zero line averaged out to this line of actual pressure. They tested about 4,000 college students back in the 40s and created dBHL or decibels hearing level to have a zero line of what normal hearing is, and we've been using that ever since. That normal hearing is at 0 to 20 decibels. If it has to be louder than 20 decibels, then you're into slight, mild, moderate, moderately severe, and severe hearing losses. This is that same graph with the pitch, the frequency here, the intensity here. The further down you have to go, the louder it has to be for you to just make out those sounds. And this is what they call the speech banana. This is where sounds are, and this is what impacts our ability to hear and understand speech. This is what a typical hearing loss looks like from age or noise exposure. I had said that the high frequencies are affected first. So out here at 8,000 hertz is where the damage is done first and where hearing loss occurs first. And so if you look at needing sound to be 70 decibels or more for you to just be able to hear something, and the sounds are only 20, 25 decibels, then what you end up hearing is something that sounds more or less like this. Yeah, you can hear, you can understand, it's just not bright, sharp, and clear anymore. This is what the basilar membrane looks like inside the inner ear. This is an electron microscope illustration of the inner and outer hair cells that actually turn motion into electrical impulses that go to the brain. And this is healthy. These little fibers are standing up and embedded in a membrane above them. And as the membrane moves, it shifts and distorts these a little bit, causing that nerve impulse to go out to the brain. And they're in these nice clean little rows like this. But when there's wear and tear either from noise, age, normal wear and tear, or ototoxic medications, or a high fever, it actually kills off those hair cells. And so you not only have less hearing sensitivity, you've got a reduction in the fidelity of the sound. So no matter how much sound you put into a severely damaged inner ear, it can be distorted, not clear. And putting a lot of sound into a damaged ear can cause more damage and more hearing loss. And so you're working with a very tough challenge of making something audible without causing additional damage or distorting it to the point where it is useless information. Tools that we have to deal with communication would are communication strategies and technology. We can either do something about it, or we can use technology to help compensate for hearing loss. Communication is a two-way street. You have somebody speaking, somebody listening, taking turns back and forth. Communication is a redundant activity, that there is the sound component to it, there is the context, contextual cues, intonation for questions, visual components that you can see, and pulling all those together is where communication is going to be most effective. And I put together a little bit of a list of recommendations for people that are trying to communicate with each other, that both people have the responsibility. If somebody has a hearing loss and you want to talk to them, you're going to try and meet them at least halfway in trying to do everything that you can to get your message across. And conversely, if you have a hearing loss, you can't put it all on the other person to make you hear and understand. You have to meet them halfway. And so basically the same rules for both sides. I speak for the partner, that I speak in the same room as the hearing impaired person. Frequently. It's much easier to do on the ship because our rooms are relatively small. The distance is kept relatively short most of the time. Getting the person's attention before the message is beneficial. Rather than, what do you want for lunch, honey? Honey, what do you want for lunch? Because 9 times out of 10, the second time you say the message, they get it. But if you don't have their attention before the message, it causes the misunderstanding the first time, which causes bad feelings, frustration, irritation, and sometimes disengagement. Move closer to talk to the partner. Does 2 things. One is, for each doubling in distance, you've reduced the sound pressure by half. So you're increasing the signal, reducing the influence of noise, and you're making all of the speech reading cues available. Speak clearly and naturally in a normal voice. The inclination is to speak loudly. I was going to demonstrate it, but I don't want to hurt anybody's ears because we would like our ears to last for a long, long time. When you raise your voice, you can make vowel sounds louder. the vowel sounds are down here, they're stronger, and the hearing loss is out here in the higher pitches. So all you're doing is making it louder, more distorted, not any clearer. Avoid yelling. Yelling does two things. One is it causes that distortion. The other thing is it will bring emotions into the communication that might not be intended, unless that's the purpose of your communication, is to yell at the person, in which case yell away. If it's misunderstood the first time, you can try rephrasing things. Did you take your pills this morning? What? Did you take your pills this morning? Huh? Have you had your medication yet? Using different words to say the same thing can help get things through. Eliminate background noise. If there are things going on in the background, TV, radio, what have you, the window open, anything that you can do to improve the signal to noise ratio is going to increase the ability to understand. Natural gestures, avoid hiding my lips. Again, back to, if you lose the visual cues, you've lost part of the redundancy, the advantage that you have in communication, being redundant. I advise my partner when there's a change in subject. If you're talking about something in a group and the subject changes, those contextual cues are not as beneficial anymore because you don't know the subject that you're working with. So say you're talking about your first car and everybody's, yeah, I had this great Camaro and da 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 and da 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 da, and then the subject changes to first girlfriend, and you say, yeah, she was a sweet ride, and you go, wait a minute, we still talking about cars here? So being on the same subject helps in guessing, because part of communication is frequently guessing, especially in difficult listening situations. And ask questions. Stay engaged in the conversation both ways. You're not just waiting your turn to speak, you're both engaged back and forth. Plus, by asking questions, you're keeping your partner engaged, and so you're checking in on them. Did you get that? And basically flipped around for the person with the hearing impairment, but starting with, I wear my hearing aids. If you've got hearing aids, wear them. Wear them, wear them. Put them on in the morning, take them off at night. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Let people know that you're having trouble understanding, because most people will make some accommodation. Sometimes they forget. You'll say, I have trouble understanding. If you'll face me when you're talking to me and slow down just a little bit, it's easier for me. And people will generally accommodate for that, and they might forget, just an occasional reminder. Face to face so that the speech reading can be done, keep down the background noise, good lighting where you can, stay on the same subject. Take turns while speaking. If 3 people are talking at the same time, the hearing impaired person is going to probably check out because they're bringing a lot of energy to focus, because they're watching you and listening very carefully and trying to stay on subject and trying to avoid getting embarrassed and making an idiot of themselves. I ask people not to speak too quickly. This isn't to be exaggerated. If somebody is speaking one word at a time, it is much easier to follow what they're saying than if they're talking real fast, running all their words together. And anybody who's tried to listen to somebody in a foreign language, if they're talking in a foreign language, even if you speak that language, if the words are run together, you don't know where one word ended and the next one began. You don't have to get ridiculous about it. Otherwise, drawing attention to them, and it's embarrassing. Hearing loss is an invisible handicap that is frequently mistaken for not caring, being stupid, or being senile. Hearing aids, what they can and can't do. They can do some amazing stuff. So the tactics are things that people can do without having any technological assistance. Hearing aids can do some amazing things. These are the polar plots of directional microphones. The hearing aids that I have 2 microphones on each hearing aid, one facing forward, one facing backwards, right side, left side. And the hearing aids can flip between one being dominant versus the other. The directional microphone can be a broad front and rear, can be front only, or the same thing, rear only, a very narrow band, or different amount of emphasis, front and back. A hearing aid can be as simple as cupping your hand to your ear. That actually keeps down background noise and gives some boost in the 2,000 to 4,000 hertz range where a lot of speech information is. That the hearing aids have algorithms built into them that can identify what is and is not speech. They can identify wind noise, motor noise, suppress that. That they have accelerometers in them. So say the hearing aid is trying to enhance speech and it's looking for speech, but you're in a car and you're facing the windshield, then it's going to go and identify speech coming from the right side. Right hearing aid goes up, left one goes down. Speech comes from the back seat, it flips to the back. You're walking and talking at the same time with somebody, the accelerometer will say you're moving. There's background noise, there's wind noise, the speech is coming from your right side, and so now it's going to flip to that side and make those adjustments automatically on the move. The hearing aids can also have Bluetooth built into them. My hearing aids will connect up to my cell phone. Phone calls go straight into them. That the television can broadcast directly into the hearing aids. Lots of things that the hearing aids can do. There is an app for my hearing aids that allows me to adjust the volume up and down. If the audiologist has done a proper job, the hearing aids are going to work in most situations well most of the time, but I might need to have some fine-tuning done in an abnormal situation, and I can adjust the volume up and down. I can split between the left and right, adjust the left and right independently. I can adjust a 3-band graphic equalizer to have more high frequencies, more mids, more lows. I can adjust the noise reduction for steady state noises like fans, wind noise, engine noise, and suppress that more aggressively if I want to. I can go to the dynamic adjustment and I can just decrease loud sound. So if I'm in a restaurant and it's doing everything that it should, but I'm near the kitchen and every once in a while there's a crash, boom, bang, and every time I'm getting that, I'm wincing. Then I might adjust to decrease just the loud sounds. Or I might be in a classroom and there's somebody in the back who's got a little tiny voice and I'm trying to hear and understand them, but I can't quite make them out. I might slide over, increase soft. I don't want to turn everything up, just the things at a distance. And I can set that up as a temporary adjustment, or I can go through all this and create something just for that situation. For bird watching, I don't always want to hear really enhanced, but when I'm out bird watching, I want my hearing aids to stay omnidirectional, hearing all around me, emphasize the high frequency soft sounds, and suppress wind noise. So I go tick, 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 and I tweak it around, and I can create 4 custom programs for stuff that I want to have, that I don't want to have to go back to the audiologist and go, I want you to tweak it like this, tweak it like that, make this. So the technology that you've got in your hand is kind of amazing. And then if you want to hear something, if you want a hearing aid that can kind of think for you, this is an assistive listening device called a Roger, and it has 6 microphones on it. If this is hung on a pendant around your partner's neck, the Roger recognizes that it's in a vertical orientation. The microphone facing up will kick in. It will pick up that person's voice and transmit it up to 90 feet away to you. So if I've got a couple that are living in a 3-bedroom house, the hearing impaired person is in one room, the partner's in the other room, that person can speak from far, far away and still be heard by the hearing impaired person with all that advantage. You take that, you lay it flat in the middle of the table, and the separate directional microphones are going to identify which speech is the dominant speech. That microphone will kick in, use a beamforming array, focus on that one voice, pick it up and transmit it directly into the person's ears while suppressing all the rest of the noise. And it can also be plugged into the TV and stream into the hearing aids for that person. Let's decide to take a nap. Just as well, there was only one more slide, and it's a similar device as this, only it's in the shape of a pen, and that somebody can be at a party, hold it, point it at the person that they want to hear better, and that directional microphone will bring that into the person's ears. The reason that I said somebody should put on their hearing aids in the morning, wear them all day long, is that hearing aids are not an aid, they're a therapy. That there is a thing called brain plasticity. If you have not heard clearly for 10, 15 years or more, putting on hearing aids means you will hear and they will mean nothing to you because you don't recognize them. I always used to ask in my practice if somebody had ever learned a foreign language, and there's not a lot of Americans that have learned a foreign language and gotten good at it, but in this audience, probably the number's quite a bit higher, that you go through a transition as you're learning a foreign language from hearing that language, translating it in your head and understanding it where you can understand the language spoken very, very slowly. And you finally get to the point where you're thinking in that language, you hear it, you understand it at the same time without having to go through that middle step of processing. The same thing is happening in the human brain, is that brain plasticity allows you to relearn context, visual, pulling all of it together so that you hear and understand immediately, only by repetition, that you're hearing those speech sounds tens of thousands of times every day if you've got the hearing aids on. If you put the hearing aids on for special occasions, for when you need to hear, that is abnormal to your brain. It is not what you're accustomed to hearing. And so you don't get it. And everything is too loud. It is too sharp. It isn't clear for you because it's not normal. But if you're hearing sharp, clear, distinct all the time, and you've gotten acclimated to hearing and understanding, then that therapy becomes part of you. And it's a gradual change. As your hearing gradually shifts, as it likely will, you have a gradual shift in your amplification so that you're getting good, clear information to your brain all the time. And so both sides need to work at it. The speaker, the listener, using the technology that you need. Communication is essential for human interaction. Poor communication leads to misunderstanding, isolation, relationship issues, and even cognitive decline. You can make the effort through active listening strategies and, if needed, technology to assist with hearing loss or processing challenges. I hope that we're all able to communicate effectively and share more of the wonderful knowledge and experiences that have brought us all together on our Odyssey. Thank you. Oh, questions?
Questions? I got one.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna wait for the microphone.
Please do.
Okay, so two questions. One,
Sure.
Where does earwax come from?
Okay.
And is it beneficial to, I mean, everybody deals with it, right?
Right.
So I've always wondered that. And secondly, I used to fly a lot, and then at times when I had a cold, my ears would severely hurt because of the pressure. So if you could go back to the ear slide, kind of walk me through what is happening to my ears when that happens, because it's
If it'll let me.
so painful.
Technology. Okay.
But Amanda's always had the question about earwax, so I thought I'd ask it.
Okay.
Why do you have so much?
Where does earwax come from? So from the pinna, from the outer ear down to the eardrum is the ear canal. That the outer half to 2/3 is cartilaginous. It has hair. It has pores in it that secrete earwax, and that's the one. Next one. There you go. Thank you. Thank you, PW. Yeah. So this portion is the flexible portion of the ear canal. Actually makes two bends. If you look straight in somebody's ear, you're not looking straight at their eardrum. It makes two bends. This outer portion is where the earwax is produced, and the suggestion is that it helps keep the ear canal moist, that it helps to discourage critters from crawling in there. Ask any kindergartner that has ever tasted earwax. It tastes yucky, and since most insects taste with their feet, they seem to not be very fond of it. Although I had to, but I won't go there. Okay, so it was earwax, and you were also asking about the pressure?
Yeah.
Okay, so at the eardrum, this is sealed. Water comes into your ear canal. It doesn't go anywhere but in and out. If you go swimming and you have water come and pool down by the eardrum, that can develop fungus, and that would be a otitis externa, or an outer ear infection. That this cavity is sealed. The only way for the pressure to equalize here is through the eustachian tube. This comes out at the back of the nose where the adenoids are. So if your adenoids are puffy, if your nose is inflamed, it pinches off this end so that it cannot equalize pressure. Since this is lined with a living membrane, it breathes, and so even if you don't have a pressure change, over time that tissue will suck the air out of there. And if you look into somebody's ear canal that is in the early stages of an ear infection, the eardrum will be sucked in like a balloon. But if you go a little bit longer, that moist membrane is going to secrete fluid that is going to pool behind the eardrum, and in that warm, moist place, bacteria will develop. That bacteria is living. It will expel gas, And later in the ear infection, you'll see the eardrum bulging outwards, and you'll see a line of fluid behind it, and that's an ear infection. You were asking about the flying and what's being done?
Yeah.
So if you can do something before you fly to take down inflammation at the eustachian tube at the back of the nose, that's where Afrin or something like that will take down inflammation, open up the eustachian tubes, allow the pressure to equalize naturally.
You got that? RJ?
Thank you, I got it.
I guess my question is a little bit along the same lines. So there, as a scuba diver, I don't know, I think it was you actually who told me this the last time we were scuba diving together, but I've always dealt with my air pressure scuba diving by pinching my nose and, blowing through my nose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was you, Rick, who told me, don't do that, you can damage your inner ear. Can you explain why and how that works? And
Valsalva, pinching and blowing to equalize pressure, is how you would compensate for it. You just don't want to be too aggressive with it. That enough pressure forced up the eustachian tube could possibly damage the eardrum. Listen to your body. If you're pinching and blowing so hard that your ears are hurting, you're blowing too hard. You're a blowhard.
so that's my problem, huh?
Makes sense now.
Hi, Rick. Both of my grandfathers found it very difficult to hear my voice as they were losing their hearing. And there's something about the pitch or timbre of my voice which is problematic, and I don't really understand. Do you?
Okay. You've got the microphone, so I don't have to repeat the question. Yes. That women's voices tend to be more difficult to hear and understand than men's voices as we age. The hearing loss is typically in the higher frequencies. Women having higher pitched voices are going to tend to be more difficult to understand. Your diction is good, but you have a gentle voice. I don't think that the accent would be a problem for a family member, but accents can be an additional challenge with hearing loss. So women's voices, and that's where the other communication tactics would come into play, and you would want to be 5 or 6 feet away, get their attention face to face, and use every other advantage that you can for communication there.
Rick over here.
Okay.
What are the negatives to using hearing aids sooner rather than later?
Negatives to using hearing aids sooner rather than later. Cost. There's the financial issue of it. If your hearing benefits from amplification, it's probably beneficial to be fit relatively early. My hearing loss, when I was first fit, was about 45 decibels at 4,000 hertz and recovered to about 30 decibels at 8,000 hertz, which is what's a noise-induced hearing loss. That it's called a 4K notch, because the first bend in the cochlea is at 4,000 hertz. So frequencies above and below 4,000 hertz are less impacted than it is by right at that bend. Relatively early fitting of a hearing loss is beneficial. You develop good habits. It becomes part of your routine. It's like glasses when your arms are getting too short. The other thing that I wanted to mention that is also a frequent benefit is that noise-induced hearing loss of mine also resulted in tinnitus. for me that is suppressed moderately by use of amplification, because the brain is looking for sound all across here, but if the environmental sound in the 4,000 hertz range does not exceed my hearing loss, I don't hear the sound there. My brain generates a sound that is, for me, a composite of 4,000 and 6,000 hertz together. It's a sharp harmonic that I pick up that is reduced when I'm using the hearing aids, not just when I wear them, but after I've taken them off, because my brain is satisfied there's nothing going on there that it's missing. Anyway, it benefits tinnitus as well.
We've talked several times, Rick, but got a specific one for you tonight. I'm hearing impaired. One ear is significantly worse than the other.
Right.
When I take off in an airplane, some point in the ascent and the adjustment of cabin pressure, I will experience a pop, and I appear to have a significant recovery of hearing in my right ear.
Okay.
What does that tell you? Is it physiological? Is there something that I can do that would benefit from that particular phenomenon?
And how long does that sensation last?
A couple minutes.
Okay. What's probably happening is that as the pressure changes, that you haven't quite equalized on that ear yet, and that the eardrum is stretched tight. If you take a guitar string or a drum head and tighten it up, the fundamental frequency of it, the natural resonance of it, gets higher pitched. And so what it is doing is it's working as a high pass filter, and you're probably getting sharper hearing by it being tighter. And then once you've equalized the pressure, it goes back to being moderately flaccid and back to the asymmetric hearing loss that you normally experience. So I don't think that it is something that could be permanently compensated for.
I was wondering about when you call them cochlear implants.
Cochlear implant, yes.
Does that bypass part of that, or how does that work?
Okay, how does a cochlear implant work? A cochlear implant is used when somebody can no longer benefit from normal amplification. And what they do is put a hole in the skull, take a wire and run it all the way up into the cochlea. That wire will typically have 22 electrode points all along it, and that you're still wearing essentially a hearing aid. You're wearing a device behind your ear that picks up sound, transfers it, instead of into louder sound, it transfers it into electrical impulses. Those electrical impulses go based on their frequency to the appropriate spot on the cochlea that is to be stimulated for that pitch. And so you're basically bypassing all of this. You have wiped out those 40,000 hair cells that I was showing you. They are just plowed down. They're completely gone. You cannot go back from a cochlear implant. Once it's done, the cochlea is gone. But they are doing better and better with them. They're having great success for people that cannot benefit from hearing aids. And so that electronic stimulation goes to the auditory nerve, and from there on it's the normal course of transmission for hearing. Do you have to have it on both sides? For the longest time in the United States, they would only do monaural fittings, or only one ear, because they were concerned that once the cochlea had been destroyed, maybe we'd come up with something that could help the other side. Europe was doing bilateral cochlear implants, and they have gone to doing bilateral in the United States as well.
I got a question back here.
Whoever gets the question to me first, I will answer first.
It's me. It's me.
It's me. Okay.
Through my career, I was a dentist, and a lot of dentists have a lot of hearing loss because of the high frequency pitch of our drill on a daily basis. And then, in the time that we've lived on the ship, RJ has made several comments to me about my not appearing to be able to hear very well. And then I asked you, and you said I actually have noticed that in you. And I guess I'm just curious because I've never considered myself to have hearing loss, but since you've pointed it out, although I do think it's improved, what, as an early stage, like I see the things you put up with a partner and myself to agree upon, and I think that's super wise advice. But are there other auditory maintenance and hygiene things that can be done to reverse some of the damage that could have been done in my career and or to prevent further loss?
You can't fix that. You cannot grow back hair cells in the inner ear. They have had success with avian ear regeneration of hair cells, but that's been quite a while, and I haven't heard anything more from that. Protect yourself against loud noise. That basically is taking care of what you've got and using communication strategies. Get a baseline audiogram as soon as you can, because if it is shifting, you want to know what it's shifting from. Pardon me, because sometimes it can be an indication of something significant. So a good baseline audiogram. I don't want to pick any particular age, because like you have your eyes tested so you know if they're changing, having your ears tested so you've got a baseline is always beneficial.
Yes, can you explain the stapedectomy surgery used in your ear diagram?
Which kind of surgery?
Stapedectomy.
Stapedectomy. Okay, the stapedectomy, as the name would suggest, is dealing with the stapes. In the case of otosclerosis, stiffening of the bones in the middle ear tends to run in families, tends to run more through women than men, tends to, but can be for any of the above. That what you have is a calcification around the foot plate of the stapes. I had mentioned that the stapes is like a piston that is pumping in and out of the inner ear cavity. And if that piston edge is rough, it creates a conductive hearing loss. It does not transfer sound efficiently. And what they've done, what I've heard recently, is that more and more of it's being done by laser, and they're basically carving the debris from the edge of the footplate of the stapes so it can move smoothly again. There are stapendectomies. There's stapes mobilization, stapendectomies, where they will replace the stapes with a pin. But the basic idea is that you want the stapes to be able to move freely to transfer sound into the inner ear.
Why doesn't... Hold on. We're kind of out of time, since we're supposed to end at 9:30.
Okay.
Do you have time for one more question?
No, there's so many people who want to ask questions.
I will hang around and I will answer questions individually, gladly.
Thank you, Rick.
Sure.
I mean, I hate doing this, but my agreement is that we're done at 9:30, and So I gotta honor that.
So you mean I have to give this back? I can't just walk around having the voice of God?
I think you should keep doing that.